I am Celeste, 34 years old, and until yesterday, marketing director with 11 years at Pinnacle Media. The conference room felt colder than usual, as Rachel, our new CMO, gestured to the empty chair beside HR director and our GM. After 11 years, listen, Celeste, your role is redundant, she said smoothly. I nodded professionally while my stomach dropped. What Rachel never anticipated was that press release she hadn't bothered to review. Before I tell you how I went from being fired to becoming their boss, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated at work. My journey at Pinnacle Media began right after I completed my MBA with a marketing specialization from Northwestern. Fresh-faced and ambitious, I joined as an entry-level marketing coordinator, eager to prove myself in the competitive media landscape. Back then, the company was still growing, finding its footing in digital transformation. I was among the team of young talents brought in to help navigate that change. From day one, I demonstrated a level of dedication that set me apart. While others maintained strict 9-to-5 schedules, I regularly stayed late refining campaigns and analyzing metrics to ensure we maximized every dollar spent. Weekends often found me at my laptop researching industry trends and preparing presentations for Monday meetings. I canceled 3 vacations in my first 2 years when unexpected client needs arose. This wasn't just about impressing management. I genuinely believed in what we were building. Robert Kane, our former CEO, noticed this commitment. He became something of a mentor, stopping by my desk to discuss ideas rather than summoning me to his office. Celeste has that rare combination of creativity and analytical thinking, he once told the board during my first major promotion. Under his leadership, I flourished, moving from coordinator to manager to director in just 6 years. My campaigns gained industry recognition. The Digital Revolution series I conceptualized won 3 national marketing awards and increased our client acquisition rate by 37%. The Community Connection initiative I spearheaded during the economic downturn not only maintained our market share when competitors were losing ground, but actually grew our revenue by 12%, when most companies in our sector were reporting losses. Throughout this time, I built a team that was both highly skilled and fiercely loyal. I didn't achieve success alone. I recruited talented individuals, many from overlooked backgrounds, and created an environment where innovative thinking was rewarded. My team had the lowest turnover rate in the company, and when exit interviews happened, departing employees consistently rated their experience on my team as the highlight of their time at Pinnacle. Everything changed 18 months ago when Pinnacle merged with Vantage Global, a larger competitor with deeper pockets, but as we would discover, a very different corporate culture. Robert took the golden parachute offered to him and left the combined company in the hands of Vantage executives. The integration was positioned as a marriage of equals, but those of us from the Pinnacle side quickly realized we were being absorbed, not partnered with. Rachel Winters arrived 3 months after the merger closed. As the new chief marketing officer from Vantage, she was technically my new boss, though her background was more in corporate communications than comprehensive marketing strategy. Our first meeting seemed cordial enough. She complimented the awards displayed in my office and expressed enthusiasm about working together. "Your institutional knowledge will be invaluable," she said, which in retrospect was my first warning sign. In corporate speak, institutional knowledge often precedes, but we need fresh perspectives. Those fresh perspectives began appearing in my calendar as meeting invitations to which I wasn't included. Decision-making conversations happened without my input, though I would be responsible for implementing the outcomes. When I did attend meetings, Rachel had a particular talent for subtly dismissing my contributions. "That's an interesting perspective, Celeste. Very Pinnacle-minded," she would say with a smile that never reached her eyes, effectively labeling my ideas as outdated. I tried adapting. I studied Vantage's previous campaigns, adjusted my presentation style to match their corporate aesthetic, even adopted their peculiar jargon in strategy documents. Nothing seemed to bridge the growing gap. Still, I persisted, believing that results would speak for themselves. The Horizon partnership was supposed to be my vindication. This potential collaboration with a major tech innovator could open entirely new revenue streams for the company. I worked tirelessly for 3 months, researching the partner's needs, crafting a detailed proposal, and building financial projections that showed substantial growth potential with manageable risk. The presentation to our potential partner was scheduled for the day after I was called into that fateful meeting with Rachel and HR. The meeting was scheduled for 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon. Anyone in corporate America knows that late Thursday meetings rarely bring good news. Still, I walked in prepared to discuss the Horizon Partnership portfolio in hand, with final details for the press release scheduled for the following morning. The conference room tableau told me everything before a word was spoken. Rachel sat center, a position of authority with manila folders neatly arranged before her. To her right sat Marcus from HR, his expression professionally sympathetic, the kind reserved for difficult conversations. On her left was Greg Wilson, our general manager, whose eyes found sudden interest in his laptop when I entered. No notebooks were open. No screens displayed presentations. This was not a strategy meeting. "Celeste, thank you for coming in," Rachel began, her voice carrying that practiced tone of corporate regret. "As you know, the integration of our companies has created certain redundancies that we need to address for operational efficiency." I remained standing, my portfolio suddenly feeling like a shield against what was coming. "After 11 years, listen. Celeste, your role is redundant," she continued smoothly, as if discussing a minor budget adjustment. "The marketing directorship as it exists under your tenure will be restructured into a broader digital engagement leadership role, aligned with Vantage Global's forward-facing market strategy." The corporate doublespeak was almost impressive. She had managed to both terminate my position and suggest it was my approach, not her decision, that was the problem. Marcus slid a document across the table. "This is the full severance package. Given your tenure, the company is offering 6 months of salary continuation benefits coverage through the end of the quarter and outplacement services." His voice had the rehearsed quality of someone who had delivered this speech many times before. "We would need you to sign a standard separation agreement, including non-disparagement and confidentiality clauses." Greg still hadn't made eye contact. He had been my ally once, even a friend. We had collaborated on countless projects, celebrated wins together, strategized through challenges. Now he examined his laptop with the intensity of someone discovering its features for the first time. "Do you have any questions?" Rachel asked, clearly hoping I wouldn't. I should have felt rage, should have demanded explanations, but shock has a way of imposing unnatural calm. "What about the Horizon Partnership announcement scheduled for tomorrow morning?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "The press release needs final approval." Rachel waved dismissively. "I will handle it. The company thanks you for your work getting this to the finish line, but we will take it from here. The financial projections in Section 3 need verification before publication," I insisted. "And the proposed delivery timeline was still under negotiation." "I said I will handle it," Rachel repeated, her smile tightening. "We have a transition team ready to manage all outstanding projects." Marcus stood, signaling the end of the discussion. "Per company policy, we will need to collect your badge, laptop, and company phone. Beverly from facilities will assist you in collecting your personal items." The indignity of the escort out was perhaps the most painful part. Beverly, whom I had barely interacted with during my 11 years, stood awkwardly by my office door as I mechanically packed photos, awards, and the coffee mug my team had given me last Christmas. My team members watched with confused expressions as I filled a cardboard box with 11 years of professional life. Some approached only to be redirected by Beverly with practiced phrases about transitional privacy. Janet, my most senior team member, managed to slip me a note with her personal phone number as she helped carry a plant to the elevator. "This isn't right," she whispered. "Call me." At my car, I handed Beverly the press release files. "Please make sure Rachel reviews the partner delivery commitments before this goes live tomorrow," I said. The numbers in the draft were preliminary. Beverly nodded absently, clearly uncomfortable with her assigned role in my corporate execution. "I will put these on her desk right away." I drove home in a daze, the box of office belongings on my passenger seat, a pathetic epilogue to more than a decade of dedication. Traffic lights blurred through tears I had managed to contain until I was alone. The radio played cheerful advertisements for weekend events I had no energy to contemplate. My phone remained silent, no colleagues calling to express outrage or offer support. In corporate exile, the silence is immediate and complete. At home, I placed the box in my hallway closet, unable to face unpacking the artifacts of my former professional identity. I poured a glass of wine I couldn't taste and sat on my balcony, watching the sunset, trying to comprehend how 11 years of exemplary work could end with 87 seconds of corporate platitudes in a sterile conference room. The betrayal wasn't just Rachel's, it was Greg's averted eyes. It was the board that approved this without considering my track record. It was a system that valued political maneuvering above demonstrated results. I had given Pinnacle Media my 20s and early 30s, prioritized company emergencies over family gatherings, and built my identity around professional success. Now I was just another redundancy, an efficiency to be gained, a line item removed from the budget. As darkness fell, I finally allowed myself to fully feel the humiliation, the anger, the loss. I cried until exhaustion overtook me, falling asleep on the couch, still wearing my last outfit as marketing director of Pinnacle Media. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by dreams of walking into empty conference rooms or finding my office occupied by strangers. By 5:30, I abandoned the pretense of rest and made coffee my morning routine, now void of purpose. No emails needed immediate responses. No meetings required preparation. The silence of my apartment seemed oppressive after years of constant connection to workplace demands. At 7:45, my personal phone lit up with a text from Janet Turn on Financial Network. Now. I fumbled for the remote, navigating to the business channel where a concerned-looking anchor was mid-sentence. Unprecedented commitments from a company of this size. Pinnacle Vantage stock is down 12% in pre-market trading as investors question the feasibility of delivery timelines announced this morning. The screen split to show a business analyst and the scrolling headline, Pinnacle Vantage promises revolutionary AI integration across full client portfolio within 60 days. My coffee mug nearly slipped from my hand. 60 days. That was impossible. My draft had clearly specified a phased 18-month rollout with initial implementation limited to 3 key clients as proof of concept. The analyst on screen confirmed my horror. What they're promising would require infrastructure that simply doesn't exist yet. The capital expenditure alone would be staggering, not to mention the technical expertise needed for implementation at this scale. My phone buzzed again with Janet's message. Rachel never reviewed the release. Sent your draft straight to PR with verbal approval. No one caught the preliminary timeline section. It went out unedited at 6 a.m. Cold dread washed over me. I had marked that section in bold red text. Draft, numbers for discussion only, not for publication. The 60-day timeline had been an aspirational best-case scenario. I included only to demonstrate the contrast with realistic implementation timelines. As I watched the financial fallout in real time, another text arrived, this one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Michael Harrington from the board. Need to speak with you urgently. Please call. Michael was one of the original Pinnacle board members who had remained after the merger, though his influence had been diluted by Vantage appointees. I had presented to him numerous times over the years, and always found him thoughtful and fair. Celeste, thank you for calling back, he said when I reached him. His voice carried the tension of someone navigating a crisis. I assume you're watching the market response to this morning's announcement. Yes, I replied, still processing the magnitude of the error. I tried to warn them the draft contained preliminary numbers that needed review. I believe you, he said, surprising me. This isn't just an oversight. There's more you should know. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Your position elimination wasn't just about post-merger redundancies. Rachel has been planning to bring in Diane Mercer to take over your responsibilities. The name triggered immediate recognition. Diane and Rachel had worked together at Vantage's previous company and were known to be close friends. More concerning, Diane had minimal experience in our industry sector. She's been promised a VP title with expanded authority, Michael continued. This has been in motion for months, but they needed to clear your position first. The board was told you were underperforming and resistant to integration initiatives. The pieces suddenly aligned with painful clarity. The excluded meetings, the dismissed ideas, the subtle undermining. It hadn't been about my performance at all, but about creating a narrative to justify my removal. The Horizon Partnership is reaching out for explanation, Michael added. Their CEO is questioning whether they've made a mistake partnering with us. Several of our existing clients are calling their account managers asking if their projects are being deprioritized in favor of this new initiative. As we spoke, my email pinged with notifications from industry connections. Saw the announcement. Call me when you can. Are these timelines for real? Competitors circling your partner already? What is happening over there? This seems reckless. Even in my shock, I felt a complex mix of emotions. There was vindication in seeing the immediate consequences of excluding me from the process I had managed for years. Yet I took no joy in watching the company where I had invested so much of myself stumble so publicly. My team would bear the brunt of this chaos, scrambling to explain commitments they couldn't possibly fulfill. Rachel is blaming the PR department, Michael informed me. She's claiming she never saw the final draft, but 3 people confirm she gave verbal approval to proceed without changes. What happens now? I asked, still trying to grasp my place in this unfolding disaster. The company will issue a clarification by end of day which will only highlight our internal disarray, Michael replied. But longer term, this raises serious questions about leadership decision-making that some of us on the board have been concerned about since the merger. After ending the call, I sat motionless, watching analysts dissect the company's impossible promises in real time. Competitors were already reaching out to Horizon with alternative proposals according to scrolling updates. The stock continued its downward trajectory. Part of me wanted to blast Rachel's incompetence across my professional networks. Another part wanted to contact reporters who were covering the story to provide insider context. But years of corporate discipline held me back from such reactive measures. There were strategic considerations that vengeance didn't account for, including the welfare of my former team and my own professional reputation. Instead, I opened my laptop and began drafting a realistic damage control plan, the kind I would have implemented had I still been there. Not because I owed the company anything, but because sometimes the best response to betrayal is demonstrating exactly what they had foolishly discarded. The rational part of my brain understood that publicly exposing Rachel's negligence might offer momentary satisfaction, but would ultimately damage my professional reputation as much as hers. Corporate America has little appreciation for whistleblowers regardless of their justification. Instead, I channeled my energy into a more strategic response. First, I reached out to Martin Chen, CEO of Horizon Technologies, the partnership company, now questioning their decision to align with Pinnacle Vantage. We had built a rapport during the proposal process, and he answered my call, despite the chaos of the day. Celeste, I was wondering if I would hear from you, he said, his tone measured. We have some serious concerns about this morning's announcement. I understand completely, I replied. I want to be transparent with you. I am no longer with Pinnacle Vantage as of yesterday afternoon. The press release went out without proper review, and the timelines published are preliminary drafts, not approved commitments. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Finally, Martin responded, That explains a lot, but creates more questions. We have already received calls from 3 of your competitors, suggesting our expectations are unrealistic and offering alternative partnerships with extended but achievable timelines. This was exactly what I had feared. The industry was small, and competitors were quick to capitalize on any misstep. Martin, the core partnership value remains solid, I explained. The implementation approach in my original presentation with the 18-month phased rollout represents realistic timelines based on current technology capabilities and your integration requirements. I appreciated your pragmatic approach during our discussions, Martin acknowledged. This morning's announcement struck me as inconsistent with those conversations. I have a board meeting tomorrow where this partnership will be reevaluated. Before you make any decisions, I would like to share a revised implementation framework I offered, not as a representative of Pinnacle Vantage, but as an independent consultant, with intimate knowledge of both the technology and your business needs. Martin agreed to review my proposal, giving me an opportunity to salvage something from the situation, though not in the way I had originally envisioned. Over the next 48 hours, I worked intensively to create a detailed implementation plan that addressed Horizon's needs while setting realistic expectations. I drew upon industry contacts to validate technical assumptions and refined financial projections based on current market conditions. When I presented this to Martin, his response was better than I could have hoped. This is exactly the kind of thoughtful analysis we were expecting from our partnership. Would you consider consulting directly with Horizon during this transition period? It was the opening I needed. Actually, I am in the process of establishing my own marketing consultancy. I would welcome Horizon as a founding client. Within a week, I had registered Celeste Strategic Partners, created a professional website, and secured a small office space. Horizon signed as my first client with a 6-month contract to oversee their marketing integration needs, whether with Pinnacle Vantage or another partner. The industry grapevine worked in my favor. 3 former clients reached out after hearing of my departure, concerned about their ongoing projects at Pinnacle Vantage. Each conversation followed a similar pattern: expressions of shock at my redundancy, concerns about current project management, and eventual inquiries about my availability for consultation. By week 3, I had secured 5 clients and was in discussions with 3 more. My business model specifically addressed the gaps I had observed in large agency services: personalized executive attention, transparent pricing structures, and realistic implementation timelines. I positioned myself not in direct competition with my former employer, but as a specialized alternative for clients requiring high-touch service without corporate bureaucracy. Meanwhile, my former team members began reaching out individually. Janet was the first, meeting me for coffee with updates on the chaotic aftermath at the office. Rachel is in damage control mode, she reported. The clarification statement only raised more questions, and 3 major clients have requested emergency review meetings. She's blaming everyone but herself. How is the team holding up? I asked, genuinely concerned for the people I had mentored. Struggling. No one knows who's in charge of what anymore. Diane started yesterday with a VP title, but keeps asking basic questions about projects that have been running for months. Are you considering other options? I asked carefully, mindful of not appearing to poach staff. Janet didn't hesitate. Several of us are updating our resumes. The environment has become toxic. Rachel demands immediate results, but provides no clear direction. I didn't extend job offers during these conversations, but I did provide industry contacts and references. My goal wasn't to dismantle my former department, but to ensure good people had options in an unstable situation. As weeks turned into months, I refined my business model based on client feedback. I deliberately maintained a lean operation, partnering with specialized freelancers rather than building a traditional agency structure. This allowed flexibility to scale resources based on project needs while keeping overhead minimal. An unexpected opportunity came when Industry Weekly contacted me for a feature on corporate pivots after hearing about my successful transition from executive to entrepreneur. The resulting article, titled "Rising from Redundancy: How Corporate Setbacks Launch Entrepreneurial Success," provided visibility I couldn't have purchased. I was careful to discuss my new venture without disparaging my former employer, focusing instead on the advantages of agile client-focused consulting in a rapidly evolving market. By the end of my 3rd month of independence, Celeste Strategic Partners had established a reputation for excellence in specialized marketing implementation. My client roster included 2 Fortune 500 companies and several high-growth startups. More importantly, I was building a business aligned with my values: honest communication, realistic promises, and exceptional delivery. While I didn't actively track Pinnacle Vantage's continuing struggles, industry news and client conversations kept me informed. The Horizon partnership had been drastically scaled back after the initial announcement fiasco. Their stock had partially recovered, but remained below pre-announcement levels. Most telling was the increasing frequency of calls from former colleagues seeking references as they explored exits from the troubled company. What had begun as a professional catastrophe had transformed into an unexpected opportunity to create something that better reflected my vision and values. The path forward was challenging but entirely mine to define. As I focused on building my consultancy reports from former colleagues, painted an increasingly dire picture of conditions at Pinnacle Vantage. What began as post-merger integration challenges had evolved into systematic dysfunction that threatened the company's market position. Devin, one of my former senior strategists, met me for lunch 6 months after my departure. The Horizon disaster was just the beginning, he confided. Rachel has created a culture of fear, where everyone is afraid to deliver bad news or realistic timelines. How is that affecting actual project delivery? I asked, genuinely concerned for clients I had worked with for years. We've missed delivery dates on 4 major accounts, Devin revealed. Instead of adjusting expectations, Rachel keeps insisting the teams work nights and weekends to catch up, but we're falling further behind because the original commitments were never achievable. The situation with Diane, Rachel's appointed replacement for my role, had deteriorated from inexperience to active mismanagement. She presented a competitor's case study as our work in a client meeting last week, Devin continued. When called out, she blamed the inherited team structure for providing incorrect materials. Client relationships were suffering as a result. Wilson Financial, one of the accounts I had personally nurtured for 7 years, had placed their contract under review. Nationwide, Retail, another long-standing client, had already reduced their engagement by 40%, shifting portions of their work to smaller agencies, including, ironically, my own consultancy, for specific strategic initiatives. The latest quarterly results were disastrous. Michael Harrington informed me during one of our occasional catch-up calls. As my former board ally, he continued providing insights into the company's challenges. Revenue is down 17% year-over-year. Client retention has dropped to 73% from our historical 90+%. Rachel's response to these challenges followed a predictable pattern. First came the reassignment of blame. Account managers weren't communicating properly. Clients had unrealistic expectations. The market was uniquely challenging. When that proved insufficient, she initiated a restructuring that eliminated several senior positions, primarily held by original Pinnacle employees, replacing them with junior staff at lower compensation. The board called an emergency meeting last week, Michael revealed. Rachel presented a recovery plan that promises 30% growth over the next 2 quarters based on a new business development initiative. The projections are completely detached from market realities. Most concerning were the reports about my former marketing team. Of the 12 members I had led, only 4 remained. The rest had found positions elsewhere, taking their institutional knowledge and client relationships with them. Those who stayed did so from necessity rather than loyalty, creating a talent deficit that further compromised service quality. The competitive landscape was responding accordingly. 3 major agencies had launched targeted campaigns specifically pursuing Pinnacle Vantage clients, highlighting their stability and consistent delivery in contrast to the publicized challenges my former company faced. Industry publications ran analyses of post-merger integration failures with Pinnacle Vantage, frequently cited as a cautionary example. Meanwhile, my consultancy continued to thrive by essentially providing the opposite of what Pinnacle Vantage had become. We promised only what we could deliver. We maintained transparent communication, even when facing challenges. We prioritized client outcomes over internal politics. These simple principles, which had once been Pinnacle's strengths under Robert's leadership, now differentiated my small firm in a crowded market. 8 months after my redundancy, I received an unexpected email from Allison Park, the features editor, at Marketing Leadership Quarterly. "We're developing a cover story on leadership transitions in volatile markets," she wrote. Your journey from corporate executive to successful entrepreneur represents a compelling case study in adaptive leadership. Would you be available for an interview? The resulting profile, the Phoenix Principle, leading through disruption, carefully documented my transition without villainizing my former employer. I emphasized the importance of values alignment, realistic goal setting, and client-centered service delivery. The article concluded with my philosophy: true leadership isn't about titles or team size, but about creating sustainable value through integrity and execution. The timing of this publicity proved fortuitous. 3 days after publication, I received a LinkedIn message from Greg Wilson, the GM, who had sat silently during my redundancy meeting. Congratulations on your feature and the success of your consultancy. I wonder if you might have time for a coffee next week. There are developments at PV you should be aware of. I approached this meeting with cautious curiosity. Greg had been notably absent from any communication since my departure, neither reaching out in support nor attempting to justify his silent complicity. We met at a quiet cafe far from both our offices. Greg appeared significantly more stressed than I remembered, the polished executive demeanor replaced by someone clearly carrying a heavy burden. First, I owe you an apology, he began after awkward greetings. I should have spoken up during that meeting, should have challenged the decision before it reached that point. I was worried about my own position and took the coward's path. I acknowledged his apology with a nod, but waited for him to continue, rather than offering easy absolution. The board has called for a comprehensive performance review, he revealed. Rachel's latest quarterly projections missed by 32%. The Horizon partnership has been officially terminated. 3 more major clients have reduced their engagements. The stock has declined 40% from pre-merger values. That's unfortunate for everyone involved, I responded neutrally. There's more, Greg continued. The board has retained an executive search firm to quietly explore leadership alternatives. Michael Harrington specifically suggested they should consider reaching out to you. This revelation caught me by surprise. I'm building my own business now. Why would they think I'd be interested in returning? Greg leaned forward. Because despite everything you built, something valuable there that many people believe can be restored with the right leadership. And frankly, there's a growing recognition that your redundancy was one of several catastrophic mistakes made during this integration. I left that meeting with mixed emotions. The vindication of having my value recognized competed with the satisfaction of building something independently successful. The possibility of returning to lead the company that had discarded me presented a complex choice I hadn't anticipated having to make. 2 weeks after my conversation with Greg, my phone rang with a number I immediately recognized: Pinnacle Vantage corporate headquarters. Celeste speaking, I answered, projecting the confident tone I had developed as a consultant. Celeste, this is William Davies, chairman of the Pinnacle Vantage board. His voice carried the gravitas of someone accustomed to steering organizations through difficult decisions. I hope I'm not interrupting your day. Not at all, William. How can I help you? I kept my response professional, giving nothing away. I would like to schedule a meeting to discuss the future direction of Pinnacle Vantage and a potential role for you in that future. Would you be available tomorrow afternoon at our executive offices? The directness of the approach surprised me. I appreciate your reaching out, William. However, I would prefer to meet at a neutral location given the circumstances of my departure from the company. There was a pause then. Of course. That's understandable. Would the Metropolitan Club at 3 p.m. work for your schedule? I agreed to the meeting, then spent the evening preparing methodically. I reviewed the company's public financial statements, recent press coverage, and industry analyses. I organized notes from conversations with former colleagues to understand current internal challenges. Most importantly, I clarified my own position and priorities before walking into a negotiation that could significantly alter my professional trajectory. The Metropolitan Club exuded old-world power with its wood-paneled rooms and discreet service. William Davies was already seated in a private meeting room. When I arrived along with Michael Harrington and another board member, I recognized as Patricia Winters, a respected industry veteran. Thank you for meeting with us, Celeste. William began after introductions. I'll come straight to the point. The board has unanimously agreed that significant leadership changes are needed at Pinnacle Vantage. We believe you possess the expertise, institutional knowledge, and strategic vision to guide the company through this necessary transformation. Michael added, "To be completely transparent, we're currently projecting our third consecutive quarter of declining revenue. Client retention continues to deteriorate. Our market position has been compromised by inconsistent service delivery and damaged trust relationships." "And where does Rachel fit in this transformation vision?" I asked directly. The three board members exchanged glances before Patricia responded. "Rachel's employment with Pinnacle Vantage was terminated yesterday. The board has lost confidence in her ability to address the fundamental challenges facing the organization." William leaned forward. "We would like to offer you the position of Chief Executive Officer, with a mandate to rebuild and revitalize the company's market position and internal culture." The offer was more expansive than I had anticipated. Not a return to my former role or even the CMO position, but the top leadership position with apparent full board backing. "I appreciate the vote of confidence," I responded carefully. "However, I've built a successful consultancy that is growing and fulfilling. Returning to Pinnacle Vantage would require significant incentives and guarantees that would make the transition worthwhile." What followed was a negotiation unlike any in my career. From a position of strength rather than necessity, I outlined my conditions: full creative control over organizational restructuring, a board seat with voting rights, an equity stake vesting over 3 years, and performance bonuses tied to client retention and employee satisfaction, rather than just revenue targets. The board members conferred briefly before William responded. "Those terms are generally acceptable, with some details to be finalized by legal teams. We believe your focus on rebuilding client trust and employee culture aligns with the board's priorities for sustainable recovery." "One more condition," I added. "The company issues a public statement acknowledging the value of institutional knowledge and experienced leadership in delivering client success. No direct reference to my redundancy is necessary, but the organization should signal its recommitment to the principles that originally built Pinnacle's reputation." Patricia nodded appreciatively. "That's entirely reasonable and aligns with the messaging we need to rebuild market confidence." We concluded with agreement to have contracts prepared within 48 hours. As I stood to leave, Michael said quietly, "The company needs you, Celeste. More importantly, the people who have remained deserve leadership that values their contributions." That afternoon, I called a meeting with my consultancy team to discuss the unexpected development. I had built a tight-knit group of 8 professionals who had trusted my vision enough to join a startup venture. "I've been offered the CEO position at Pinnacle Vantage," I told them directly. "Before making my final decision, I want to discuss what this means for each of you and the business we've built together." Their reactions ranged from surprise to concern about client commitments. After addressing their questions, I outlined my proposal. Those who wish to join me at Pinnacle Vantage will have positions with enhanced responsibilities and compensation. Those who prefer to maintain the consultancy can continue serving our clients with my full support during transition, and I will help secure ongoing leadership. The next 72 hours passed in a whirlwind of contract negotiations, transition planning, and strategic preparation. When the final agreement was signed, I felt not triumph over adversity, but the weight of responsibility for rebuilding what had been damaged through poor leadership. News of Rachel's departure and my appointment broke simultaneously through a company press release that carefully emphasized returning to core values of client service excellence and employee development. Industry publications immediately picked up the story with headlines ranging from "Prodigal Executive Returns to Rescue Struggling Agency" to the more pointed "Redundant to Resurrected Marketing Director Returns as CEO." My first official act was to call an all-hands meeting for my first day back. Rather than making this announcement through HR channels, I personally called several respected team leaders, including Janet, who had remained despite opportunities elsewhere, asking them to help ensure full attendance. Rachel's final day had apparently been chaotic. According to Janet, when informed of the board's decision, She had attempted to delete files from her computer before security escorted her from the building. She kept saying this was a conspiracy orchestrated by Pinnacle loyalists on the board, Janet reported. It was uncomfortable for everyone. The contrast between her departure and my return was striking. Where she had left amid accusations and deleted files, I arrived with a clear recovery strategy and transparent communication plan. The tables had completely turned not through vindictive maneuvering, but through the natural consequences of values-based leadership versus political positioning. As I prepared for my first day as CEO, I reflected on the unlikely journey from redundancy to leadership. The very skills and principles that Rachel had deemed redundant had become the organization's most critical need in crisis. There was poetic justice in that revelation, though the real work of rebuilding was just beginning. Walking through the lobby of Pinnacle Vantage headquarters on my first morning as CEO stirred complicated emotions. The security guard did a double-take before breaking into a warm smile. "Welcome back, Miss Celeste. Or should I say Madam CEO now?" "Just Celeste works fine, Henry," I replied, touched that he remembered me after nearly a year. This simple interaction reinforced what had always been true: organizations are fundamentally about people and relationships, not titles or org charts. The executive office I now occupied had once been Robert's, then briefly occupied by Vantage's transition CEO, and most recently by Rachel. I spent my first hour, not in meetings, but removing the imposing desk that created unnecessary distance between leader and team, replacing it with a round conference table that would facilitate collaborative discussion rather than hierarchical pronouncements. My all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the largest conference space. As I entered the room, fell silent, all eyes turning to evaluate their returning colleague, now positioned as leader. I recognized the wariness, the tentative hope, the skepticism born from recent disappointment. "Thank you all for being here today." I began intentionally moving away from the podium to stand directly before them. "Some of you worked alongside me for years. Some of you joined during the merger. A few of you I'm meeting for the first time. What unites us is a commitment to rebuilding Pinnacle Vantage into an organization we can all be proud to represent." I outlined my immediate priorities, with transparent clarity: stabilizing client relationships, evaluating current project commitments for realistic delivery, rebuilding damaged team morale, and restoring market confidence through consistent execution rather than grandiose promises. "I won't pretend the path forward is easy," I acknowledged. "We've lost valuable talent. Client trust has been compromised. Our market reputation has suffered. But what remains is a core of dedicated professionals who understand our industry and care about doing meaningful work. That foundation is stronger than any temporary setback." The restructuring that followed was measured and strategic, not the reactive purge that many expected from a returning executive with a score to settle. I evaluated leaders based on demonstrated values and performance, not merger origin or political allegiance. Some Vantage executives who had maintained integrity during the difficult integration period became key allies in the rebuilding process. Several Pinnacle managers who had become cynical or combative were counseled on constructive approaches or transitioned to roles better suited to their current mindset. Reaching out to departed talent became a personal priority. Within the first month, I had conversations with 15 former team members who had left during the tumultuous period. 7 ultimately returned, bringing with them not only their expertise but a renewed appreciation for values-aligned leadership. Their return sent a powerful message throughout the organization about the changing culture. The Horizon partnership required special attention. I personally called Martin Chen, acknowledging the relationship damage and requesting an opportunity to present a revised approach. "We've restructured our leadership and realigned our commitments to match our actual capabilities," I explained. "I would appreciate the chance to demonstrate how we've changed." Martin agreed to a preliminary discussion, which evolved into a scaled engagement, focusing initially on specific marketing objectives rather than the comprehensive partnership originally envisioned. This partial recovery, established a pattern-honest acknowledgement of past failures, realistic proposals for present needs, and consistent delivery to rebuild credibility for future opportunities. We applied this approach systematically across the client portfolio. Some relationships were irretrievably damaged, but many clients responded positively to straightforward communication and demonstrated commitment to realistic execution. By the end of the first quarter, under my leadership, client retention had stabilized at 84%, a significant improvement from the declining metrics of previous periods. Internally, the healing process required both structural and cultural changes. I instituted weekly transparent communications about company performance and challenges, replacing the selective information sharing that had characterized Rachel's tenure. We implemented a project management system that flagged at-risk deliverables, early encouraging problem-solving rather than blame assignment. Most significantly, we rebalanced the performance evaluation criteria to value collaboration and knowledge sharing alongside individual achievement. Teams that successfully transferred skills and supported colleagues received recognition equal to those delivering revenue growth. This directly countered the competitive internal culture that had developed during the integration, where information hoarding had become a survival tactic. Financial recovery followed more slowly than cultural realignment, but by the end of the second quarter, revenue stabilization was evident, with modest growth in specific service categories where we maintained competitive advantage. The board acknowledged this progress, while understanding that sustainable rebuilding required patience rather than pressure for immediate dramatic results. Throughout this professional reconstruction, I experienced a parallel personal journey of healing and growth. The trauma of sudden redundancy after years of dedication had left deeper emotional scars than I initially recognized. Leading the organization that had once rejected me required processing complex feelings of vindication, lingering hurt, and newfound purpose. Weekly sessions with an executive coach helped me navigate these challenges, separating personal healing from professional decision-making. I learned to acknowledge the legitimacy of my emotional responses while preventing them from driving leadership choices that should be based on organizational needs rather than personal history. This personal growth influenced my leadership approach in unexpected ways. Having experienced the devastating impact of abrupt dismissal, I instituted a more humane approach to necessary personnel changes, providing clearer feedback, genuine improvement opportunities, and dignified transitions when positions were eliminated. 1 year after returning as CEO, we held an anniversary gathering that doubled as a celebration of the company's return to profitability. Looking around the room at engaged teams, renewed client relationships, and a leadership group balanced between Pinnacle veterans and Vantage contributors who shared our values, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment beyond mere professional success. Our journey this past year has taught me that organizational resilience isn't about avoiding setbacks I shared in my remarks. It's about how we respond to them. Whether the challenge comes from market forces, integration difficulties, or leadership missteps, our recovery demonstrates that values-centered decision-making ultimately creates sustainable success. The path from redundancy to leadership had revealed a profound truth. Success isn't about getting revenge, but about creating something better than what broke you. The best response to being underestimated is quiet excellence that eventually speaks for itself. This lesson applied equally to professional challenges and personal setbacks, offering wisdom that transcended any specific corporate context. As we move forward, I remain mindful that today's success does not guarantee tomorrow's. Leadership requires continuous learning, adaptation, and humility. The experience of having everything I worked for taken away taught me to hold position and achievement lightly, while maintaining an unshakable grip on personal integrity and authentic purpose. Have you ever experienced being undervalued at work only to find a better path forward? I would love to hear your stories of professional resilience in the comments below. If this journey of overcoming workplace adversity resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need encouragement during their own career challenges. Thank you for listening to my story, And remember that sometimes what feels like your professional ending is actually just the beginning of something far better than you imagined.